All right, today we're going to talk about what to do if you've messed up the no contact rule. And if you stick around until the very end of this video, not only am I going to explain or show you our new definition of what we think a no contact rule should be defined as, but I'm also going to show you what to do if you've messed up a no contact rule and what messing up a no contact rule looks like. And I'll even dive a bit deeper into the psychology of what an ex is thinking when they're reaching out to you during the no contact rule and guilting you. Now, let's start from the top. Since I've started this YouTube channel, I've talked a lot about the no contact rule. It is one of the premier strategies that not only myself, but a lot of other breakup experts talk about. Ultimately, what I decided to do in 2021, this year, was look at the areas of the no contact rule that were getting wrong. And ultimately, when I looked at the no contact rule, I determined that I needed to redefine it for my audience. So here is our new definition of what I believe a no contact rule should be. The no contact rule is a period of time where you ignore your ex on purpose. The intent of this tactic should not be used to make your ex miss you, but instead should be used to rebuild your own life so that you outgrow your ex. By doing this, the no contact rule can have the added benefit of making an ex miss you. So basically, the big change that we've noticed is the intent of someone who goes into the no contact rule will dictate how likely they are to make an ex miss them with the no contact rule. Too often we find many of our clients jump into the no contact rule only thinking about how to make an ex miss them. What they fail to realize is the missing them part is a symptom of doing a successful no contact rule. So now that we have the no contact rule defined, let's talk a little bit about the different types of no contact. Now, on the outset, you may not think this is relevant to what this video is about. After all, this video is about what to do if you've messed up a no contact rule. It's important to understand that I'm just talking about general no contact rules. See, there's really three types of no contact. There's the general types of no contact, there are the limited types of no contact, and there is the indefinite type of no contact. So the general type of no contact is basically what 90% of the population is going to use. But a limited type of no contact is going to be a situation where you are forced to see your ex no matter what you do. You can work with your ex, go to school with your ex, share children with your ex. In these specific circumstances, I highly recommend watching our video on the limited no contact rule so you can kind of get a primer of what that is. The indefinite no contact rule is also one of those no contact rules that we tell people who want to get over their exes to initiate, I guess. Ultimately, the indefinite no contact rule is where you stay in no contact forever, essentially ghosting or cutting your ex out of your life because they're too narcissistic or they're just too chaotic for your life. So going forward, when I'm talking about messing up the no contact rule, I'm only talking about it in the general sense. For most of the population who's watching this video, that's going to be you. You're going to be implementing a regular type of no contact period. So without further ado, let's talk about what actually messing a no contact rule up looks like. So messing a no contact rule up is very, very common. I don't want you to think that you're being singled out because you've broken a no contact rule. Simply put, if you mess up a no contact rule, it means you break it before the desired time period that you set has been completed. For example, let's say you decide to do a traditional 30-day no contact rule. That means you're going to be ignoring your ex on purpose for 30 days. And then maybe around day 7, they text something that makes you want to break it and you break it. But there's a lot of things that go into your decision to break a no contact rule. So here's a list of items that we found are kind of the big issues with our clients. So breaking a no contact rule could be where you break it by responding to an ex when you feel bad. Ultimately, this is like when they reach out to you, maybe day 5 of you doing a no contact rule, and you feel kind of guilty and you respond back. Another really common thing that we see is when you show up at their house or their work to get their attention. Again, very common. You go a certain period of your life with a pattern of seeing them a certain amount all the time. And when that breakup is occurring, that pattern's broken, you want nothing more than just to simply see them. So you put yourself in a situation where you can see them by showing up at their house or showing up at their work. But this is kind of a creepy thing, but that pales into comparison to the next thing we see, where you put yourself in a position where you accidentally run into them. So these are the type of people who will negotiate a no contact rule with you. Instinctually or intellectually, they understand that they need to implement a no contact rule, but their heart just isn't in it. So they will look for any excuse to break it whatsoever. So much so that they will accidentally change their work route when they're driving to work, just so they could potentially catch a glimpse at their ex. And again, this is kind of creepy, stalkerish behavior. Now this begs a really interesting question. Why? Why are so many of our clients failing a no contact rule? And it's interesting because I don't think a lot of people talk about this. They talk about just the simple state of finish your no contact. They don't really try to speak to you on your levels because maybe they don't understand what it's like to implement a no contact rule on someone that you love potentially more than anything in your life right now. But there are some really common components that go into the reasoning for why you would fail or break or mess up a no contact rule. One of the first most common components is you feel bad about ignoring your ex. And this is really, really common because you're probably an extremely kind person. It doesn't feel right to you to be ignoring them. It feels like some form of emotional manipulation, and I will get to that in a second. But let's move on to the next common reason for why we see people messing up their no contact rules. And that's their ex pulls the guilt trip on them. This is where you basically are going through life with the no contact rule being implemented and your ex says something like, you know what, you're being super childish about how you're acting about this breakup. How dare you don't pay attention to me? And of course you feel bad because, oh my goodness, I don't want them to be upset with me, so you break the no contact rule to kind of calm them down. Another huge reason is that you get worried that your ex will forget you. This is simply a rational type of thinking. I have never encountered a situation where your ex will forget you. More often than not, what happens is they will want to ignore you because of your anxious type of behaviors, but that doesn't mean they've forgotten you. Another huge reason is you become terrified that your ex will find someone else during the no contact rule. The whole out of sight, out of mind type thing. And this is a valid point. But here's what I would say to that. One of the reasons people break up with you in the first place is because they think they can do better than you. So it does make sense that they would want to see if they can find someone better than you. But what's interesting is no matter what you would have done, they would have still been looking for someone else to replace you. Besides, one of the worst things that you can do is implement yourself when they're in the midst of a honeymoon period with that new person. So it still doesn't make sense to break a no contact rule for this fear. So let's answer the question here. You've messed up the no contact rule. Why is that such a bad thing? Well, I'm on record of saying this in a lot of different videos, but whether you realize it or not, every single time that you have to restart a no contact period after you mess it up, it loses a little bit of effectiveness. Now, that isn't to say that it can't be extremely effective. On average, we find that 80% of our clients fail the no contact rule on their very first attempt. So a lot of people should be reading this article. Pretty much 80% of the people who try the no contact rule should be reading this article, but why isn't it as effective when you try it the second time, third time, fourth time, fifth time? Well, simply put, your ex notices a pattern going on. And because that pattern, it kind of puts a spotlight onto what you're doing. Not only that, it kind of just makes sense. The analogy I often give to people is imagine you're watching a movie for the very first time. The emotions that movie is trying to give you are going to be at their highest the very first time that you actually experience the movie. So you go watch the movie a second time, and again, the emotions are really strong, but it's not quite like the very first time. So you go again to try to recapture that feeling, but it's still just not as good. It's not even as good as the second time you went, and on it goes. The same thing happens with the no contact rule. Now, I will also call people out here, and this is a rare thing for me to do, but if you have tried a no contact rule and you have failed it 5 times, do not blame me because it's not effective. Blame yourself because you weren't disciplined. But I still haven't answered the ultimate question, and that is, if you've messed up a no contact rule, If you have fallen for your ex's guilt trips, if you have felt bad or worried that your ex was gonna move on to someone else and you broke the no contact rule, what should you do? Well, this is the easiest thing to answer pretty much in the entire YouTube channel. You simply start the no contact rule over from the beginning, and we're really strict about this. That means, let's say you do a 30-day no contact rule. On day 28, you break it. You failed it. Can't you just kind of get to the end there? I mean, there's like 2 days left. No, you have to start over from the beginning. Now you may be wondering, well, why? Why are you that extreme? Well, simply put, because you're missing the entire point of the no contact rule. People who are so undisciplined that they are breaking a no contact rule at 28 days have completely missed the point that the entire version of the no contact rule that we're trying to perpetuate here is that you're outgrowing your ex. Now, why? Well, what we found is if you come into a no contact rule with the intent of, I'm gonna use this to harm my ex, to make them miss me, it has the exact opposite effect. Instead, if you come into it with, you know what, I'm actually gonna try to get over my ex. Yeah, I still want them back, and I'm still gonna try the ex recovery program method, but I kind of wanna get to this place emotionally where I'm like, you know what, I'm okay if I don't get them back. That has a much higher likelihood of making them miss you. And if you're breaking it on day 14 or day 15 or day 28, you're missing the point. You have not outgrown your ex. You are still extremely obsessive and you need more work. So we send you right back to the beginning. It's kind of like Monopoly, go back to go. Maybe that's not the best analogy, but you get the point. Now, there's a couple of things that I talked about in this video that I want to address personally, because it's something that I know 100% of people are gonna be wondering about because it's the number one fear during a no contact rule, and that's a situation where your ex is guilt tripping you. Now, what I'm gonna try to do for you is explain to you how I look at situations like this. So let's kind of set it up. You're in a situation where you have implemented a no contact rule, and this is a pretty stark contrast to what has happened in your entire breakup behavior up to this point. Before, you were extremely anxious. You would blow up their phone, but now you're just a wall, a silent wall. And this kind of makes them angry a little bit. So they try to reach out to you and they try to guilt trip you about what you're doing to them. Your reaction is a normal one. Like, oh my gosh, I don't want to hurt their feelings. Here's how I would train you if we were working together to instead look at the situation. Think of it like this. If your ex wanted immediate responses, your ex shouldn't have broken up with you or suggested a breakup in the first place. And I think what we need to do is kind of understand this concept of no contact as a consequence. A lot of times what ends up happening is our clients who fail the no contact rule because they're getting guilt tripped or because their ex is saying something to make them feel guilty or make them feel like they're doing something wrong, and they break the no contact rule. Really what your ex is doing is this subtle game, subconsciously, whether they realize it or not, of testing to see when you'll break it. And the more that you consistently show this pattern of not being disciplined, not seeing it through until the very end, and breaking it on day 15, they know they can continue to push you and continue to push you and continue to push you, and all you're doing is rewarding bad behavior. Instead, what you should be doing is rewarding good behavior. So no contact is kind of their consequence for this breakup situation that they have forced. Most of our clients, I also do want to say, are people who have been broken up with. Now, we do get clients who are the ones who broke up with their exes, and we still find the no contact rule is extremely effective in those circumstances, but I'm talking specifically about the clients who have been broken up with. Now, one final thing. I want you to understand how anger works and how anger is an ultimate defense mechanism. And I'd like to do this by using a real life example from our private Facebook support group. So here's sort of the situation. We have a client coming in our private Facebook support group, and one of the great things about the support group is you can just kind of post your situation and get feedback from all sorts of men and women who are going through very similar situations. So they immediately explain that they're in the middle of a no contact rule, maybe around day 13 or day 14, and their ex is starting to guilt them. You are so selfish. How dare you react this way? And the woman's reaction is exactly what you would expect. Oh my goodness, he's never been this angry before. What should I do? What you need to understand is what anger really is. And ultimately, him calling her childish because he basically says, "How dare you? You're so selfish. You're acting like a child with not responding to me." Him saying this is interesting because if you really think about it, well, here's how I would look at it. Understand that anger is a defense mechanism. It's the result of being upset or sad or feeling shame over not getting something that your ex really wants in this particular case. They're trying to find, really in the best way possible, in the best ways they know how to make themselves feel better and to tell themselves that they're not wrong. But we know they are wrong. Otherwise, a breakup wouldn't have happened, right? So having an ex tell you that you're selfish or acting childish for not responding to them implies that they are selfless and they are not childish. But when we look at the situation, all that you're really doing is minding your own business and trying to move past a breakup. All they're doing is throwing a tantrum since things aren't going their way. Now I ask you, in this case, who is acting more childish? Someone who is unresponsive or someone who's throwing a tantrum? I'll leave it up for debate. Hey there, thanks so much for getting to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed my sort of philosophy on messing up the no contact rule and why it's a common thing and that you shouldn't be ashamed by it. And if you are breaking it, just realize it's not over. You have multiple chances. Just try to stay disciplined going forward. But if you are going through a no contact rule and you haven't taken the X Recovery Chances quiz that I talked about in this video, that's probably the best place I would start. So all you have to do if you want to take the quiz is simply look in the description below and click the link you see there. It will give you kind of an idea of where you should be starting and a few of the best next steps that you should be taking. And hopefully, if all goes right, you can get into our private Facebook support group by getting the X Recovery program and kind of interacting with us there. We can help you along the way. I'll see you guys next time.